Hi everybody. Yup, I'm in the head, but I have something very special I want to do in here. I think it's going to be pretty neat. I've replaced the toilet seat, and you're like, yeah, that's really awesome. This is a very special toilet seat. This is a bidet toilet seat. So check this out. It's made by a company called Brondell, and it's got little controls over here on the side, which is kind of nice, and it takes a water inlet here. Something I really like about this toilet seat though is that it's not electric, so it's not going to take any power at all, and the only thing we have to hook up to it is water. Pretty sweet. It's really nice. It's a really nice toilet seat too. It's nice and rounded. It's got soft clothes on it. It's pretty sweet. So way big upgrade over the original toilet seat anyways, which was just kind of gross and had been cleaned 1,000 times and was really, really dirty. It just was horrible. The only real difficulty in hooking this up is all the plumbing connections, and that can be challenging. It comes with a hose, looks like this. It's got a 90-degree on one end and a straight on the other. And these threads are kind of specific threads. You'll notice you see this rubber gasket here. These are not tapered threads. So that's going to be important in a minute. But let's go ahead and start with this. We'll hook this up to the bidet in the back and we'll work our way up to the water supply. Our connection here on the side, we just want to be careful not to cross thread this thing. So we want to be careful that this thing goes in nicely. And these threads are pretty fine, so they're pretty easy to cross thread. It should just screw on very easily. If it doesn't, keep backing it off until you feel the little click, and then you can go forward with it. There it goes. Okay. Yep, it should spin on easily by hand most of the way, and if it doesn't, then you're definitely cross-threaded. And those are plastic threads, so be really careful with them. There we go. All right. Now for the last bit, I just want this sort of angled away a little bit. I'm going to use these guys to lock this down. Now you want to be so careful, plastic threads, right? And you've got a rubber gasket. It doesn't have to be tight. All right, that's good. That feels really good. These are very special pliers. These are KNIPEX pliers. I really like these things. They don't have any teeth on them at all, and the jaws move parallel. You can see that. It's pretty cool. So it really is an adjustable spanner. You can make it very small, really teeny little guys, or it actually gets awfully big. And this is the medium size. They make a small one and a large version of this, but this is a really handy tool. If you need to tighten up a nut and you don't use channel locks, they'll just ruin these surfaces. These things work great. They won't mar it, and they work just like a regular wrench. Now the other end of this is actually kind of tricky because what we want to get to is a bit of this. This is just 3/8 tubing. We need something that we can connect this connection here, this screw-on connection, which is the same as the other side, to a 3/8. And how do we do that? Well, I found this little guy, which is really, really nice. It's a female though, so that's an issue, but it's exactly the right type of threads. And this is a push-on connector for the 3/8 tubing, so that works really well. So how do we get this connected to this? I'll show you that. This is a pretty easy thing to get. It's just a 3/8 compression fitting here. But the important thing is not these nuts or the little ferrules. We don't need either of those. What we do need though is these threads. These are straight threads and they're fine and they're exactly what we're looking for. And we can easily screw that right on like that, screws right in. On the other side, we're going to install our push fit 3/8 connector, and that screws on to the end of this as well. Look at that, perfect. So there we go, we're all set there. Both of these have rubber gaskets in them, so they're going to seal. You don't cram down on rubber gaskets, that'll just make them leak. So we can use our pliers again here, these guys here, and just hold it. It's going to kind of go tight enough by hand. There we go. I think that's great. That's going to be more than tight enough, and we won't have any leaks. This is a good solid connection. I know we have that one connector in there, and I would have loved to have found this 3/8 push-on in a male that we could go directly onto this, but I just couldn't find one anywhere. I looked all over the web for it. I think I was lucky enough to find this one as a female. Next step is to install our 3/8 tubing into the whole house water system.
If you like this content, consider subscribing to our channel. If you want real-time time updates and benefits, consider another level and become a patron. It really helps us out.
Okay, that's great and everything, but you're probably wondering, how do you splice in this 3/8 tubing into the boat's water system? Now, this boat is a French boat. It's a fountaine pajot, so it has 15 millimeter PEX pipe throughout. It's a European standard. It's very difficult to get from European standard to the American sort of SAE thing, this 3/8. But there's a really cool part. Check this guy out. Now, this thing is awesome. This is 15 millimeter pass through, and then this valve and the takeoff is 3/8 inch. So that's kind of a rare bird. You've got millimeter to inch conversion, and it comes with this fancy pants little shutoff valve, which is really good. If you ever have any problems with the bidet, you can reach in there and shut the valve off. I always like to install these plumbing fixtures with a valve on them because they kind of like a fuse in a sense, you know? I mean, at least with a fuse, an electrical connection, you can always pull that out and disconnect it. This is the same sort of thing. You can disconnect the water supply. And it's a really nice valve. Inside there, a little hard to see, but it is a stainless steel ball valve. I'm so glad they made one of these things, because having to cobble together a bunch of bits to get this thing to work would be a nightmare. This is pretty sweet. All right, so let me show you in the cabinet here exactly how we're going to plumb this in. I've taken the cover off the wall here in the head just to show you the plumbing, and it's where we're going to be accessing the water supply. Looking at our water lines here, this water line is the main line here coming down. It's also branching off going into our expansion tank that's right here, and it also branches off right down here and goes into the solenoid, which is right up here, for the potty. This is our valve, and if I try to fit it in here, I just have an interference here with this water line that's going out to the toilet itself. Well, what about over here? If I put this guy in here, or maybe turn around like this, I suppose, and put it in like that, I think I've got plenty of room here, and I just need to cut this pipe and just sort of splice this guy in. Should be pretty straightforward. So I think that's the direction I'm going to go. Step one's going to be to go turn off the water, because the last thing we want to do is have water going everywhere and have the pump just running. But if we turn off the power to the pump, we can kill the water pressure in the system, and then I can kind of bleed it out a little bit so we get not quite as much water. Because I imagine once I cut that thing, it's pretty low in the boat. I'm going to get a lot of water. I'm almost going to probably want to put a bucket underneath it, that much water. This is the breaker for our freshwater pump, so we just go click a doodle and turn that off. All right, I'm all set here. I've got a small little bucket here I can get water into. I've got my rag down here just in case things go nutty. These connectors are easy enough to push off. Now, I have drained the pressure out of the system. I just opened the faucet really quick, but I know there's gonna be a lot more water. There's gonna be water in the accumulators and all sorts of stuff. So I hope this is gonna work. I hope this will be enough. We're not gonna have too much. So the way these things work is you push these down and it releases the hose. And you pull the hose out. Now, see, there's all the water. There. Okay. Oh, I don't think it's done. Maybe. Well, if that's it, that was easy. Got an idea also of how deep this hose goes into the fitting. That'll be important when we splice in the new one. Now, the other fitting on the other side is a little more difficult to get out because there's a ring that you have to push into this thing. It's a special ring that you push in, and that will release this. But we technically really don't need to release this tube from the top because we're just going to be cutting a section out of it. Unless I completely screw it up, I think we'll be okay. So this is the way I want to install it, like that. So I've got access to the valve. And about midway, I would say that we need to cut right about there-ish. Do you agree with that? I think that's about right. It should be right about where we need to be. It's right about there. Double check that one more time. Make sure everything's cool. Oh yeah, it's gonna be to the bottom of this, so right about there-ish, I'd say. All right, get the valve out of the way. And this guy. It doesn't do the greatest cut, but it worked. I'm gonna need the other end of this. Interesting to see what's in there. Oh, look at that. See, I've been thinking that there's been a lot of rust in the system, and there it is. I can see it inside the tubing. Yeah, a little hard to see, but I can definitely see some rust in there. So we can push on our valve. I think it's going to be a good idea to put it in now, because if I wait too long, I won't know exactly where the new one needs to be, how long it needs to be. So this is going to be interesting getting all of this together, though, now that I think about it. This does not go up, I don't think, much at all. No. Huh. And the one going down, push that down at all? Yeah, we can push it down. Okay, great. So that's not the end of the world. Let's go ahead and push this guy on. There it goes. All right, and it feels like it's seated. It's nice. Got access to my valve here. That's great. Now this piece of pipe needs to go from this base down here all the way up to that line up there. So we're not cutting off too much of it actually. And what I want to cut off, if I'm going to cut one side or the other, I think I'm going to cut this side because this is the side that was actually inside the connector down there. So it's already been sort of crimped and squished and stuff. This end is clean, and when I cut, I'll also get a fairly clean cut as well. So let's see, so that's from there. We need to cut off to there, to pretty much that line right there. So that's this line right here. Now I do have more of this hose. If I screw this up, not a huge amount of pressure. There we go. And I think these tools are great. This is kind of a standard hose cutting tool here. It's a very sharp blade and then a ratchet on it as it comes down on whatever hose you're cutting. And then in order to open it, you just pull it apart. These things work really, really well, and they give you a nice straight cut. So if you try to do this with a utility knife or something, you can get a diagonal cut, and then it's not going to seal nearly as well. Maybe not seal at all. Now, we're going to live a little dangerous and we remove our bucket. Pull this out, we'll reinsert our tube here. Great. And then I think we can just press this on here. There we go. We're all together. Look at that. Pretty sweet, huh? Fancy pants. That's pretty nice. I'm going to close this valve at this point, and I'm going to dry everything off. And I'm going to go turn on the water and make sure that we don't have any leaks. I don't want this all hooked up and everything. I have to take the whole thing apart again if I've got any leaks. So at this point, let's just double check for leaks and make sure we're good with everything. One last push on our tube to make sure that we're in here. Yep, that all feels good. It felt like it went in well as well. It goes in like maybe a 1/4 inch or so, maybe more than that, maybe like 3/8 of an inch before it seats. And you should definitely feel it sort of slide in and seat. That's the deal. All right, got our valve off. Let's go turn our water back on. And you've got a front row seat if anything goes wrong. How we doing? Looks pretty dry in there. I'm gonna go turn on the faucet in the galley just to get some water running through. Make sure we don't just have air in the line. All right, how we doing in here? No leaks. You heard the pump turn on. It's great. I was just running the sink upstairs, so that looks great. We've got water through the whole system. The pump is on. We're good. We're good and dry. Our next step's going to be to install our plastic 3/8 tubing onto our slip connect that we've installed down here on the bidet side, and then push it up. And I think it's going to be easier to push it up here than to try and hook it up there and then bring it down. So I think I'm going to start on this end. We'll push the hose up and then we can cut it to length. Right. These connections are super simple. That's what I love about these things. You just push them in. There it goes. And it went in, like I said, about 3/8 of an inch and stopped. Great. That is all connected. I'm going to feed our hose up through this hole here and catch it on the other side. All right. There it is down there. Pull this up. All right. And there's our hose. Great. Let's figure out where we want to run this. You know what? I think I want to run it under these pipes here. These are the potty drain pipes. Like that. Got our hose run underneath the pipes and up into here, and we're all set to go in here, but I want to cut it to length first. Pull a bit of this through. Okay. Oh, that's great. That's perfect. Okay, so we've got our hose into the wall there, going up this way. Okay, so I'm going to end up wire tying these onto our big hoses here, but we'll run across here, come up here, and you can just plug right in. It'll be pretty straightforward. See, I think we can cut some of this hose. I think that's going to be more than enough. You can always shorten this up later as well, and maybe what I would want to get would be a 90 degrees so this would come straight up. But for now, we'll just cut this and we'll be all set. I just want to take a look at these ends. Sometimes get a little squished. Okay. Could actually even come underneath this. And that'll give us a little more support. There we go. And straight into this. There it goes. And it's in. There we go. Pretty straightforward, huh? The control on the bidet is off, so that's on, off, and that's on and off. Okay, great. So that's off. We're going to be looking here, and then we're also going to be looking at the other end of this to make sure none of that's leaking. And now for the moment of truth, I'm going to throw that valve, and we're going to check all of our water connections. Good sign. No water leakage here at all. Everything nice and dry. Our connection to the bidet is nice and dry. That's good. All right. And I don't see any water coming off of those at all. They look great. No drips, no nothing. That looks really, really good. And if they were to leak, they just leak down into the bilge. It's not the end of the world. It wouldn't damage anything. It's just we'd want to get that sorted. So, all right. Yeah, those connections look good too. All right, well, let's check this out. Let's see how this works. I'm really curious. So, we'll pull the seats up. These guys down there are going to be the nozzles right here. And I'm guessing they retract. Yeah, they do. So that's what we've got here. This is the way a lot of these work. So you've got this little guy with little sprayers on it, and then this one with other sprayers. So you got kind of a forward and a reverse on these. All right, so I'm going to cover them because I don't want to get squirted in the face, but there it goes. And there's, it's a little hard to see, but that one came out and it's squirting water all over the place. Turn it off, goes back, check the other one. There it goes, look at that. And that's the other one. Yay! Now normally it doesn't get this splattery because it's your butt that this water is going into, so that works out really, really well. A little wet here, but that's pretty cool, huh? Well, I'm going to call that a success. We have installed a bidet in our master head here. I'm really looking forward to this. It'll save a little bit on the potty paper, and also just bidets are wonderful. Honestly, if you've never used one, you're like, what's the big deal? The minute you use one once or twice, you'll be like, oh my God, I cannot live without this thing. And the fancy pants ones are electric, and they heat the water and they heat the seat and all that. But like I said, I just didn't want to take all the power to do that. They're usually 110 volts and you've got to plug them in somewhere. It's kind of a thing. Maybe if this one doesn't work out, we'll install one of those. But I think for now, we'll give this one a try since it's all passive like that. You just rotate the little knob and clean out your bum or wherever, whole underside. Really looking forward to using this. It's been great fun. Well, I hope you enjoyed this little installation. We've got a lot more plumbing projects and all sorts of other projects coming up.
Join us next time when we explore Annapolis and Franny takes out the sunfish for the very first time in the Chesapeake. As always, thanks for watching to the end, and until next time, safe travels. Bye!